Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some extremely fun battles in the Great League Fantasy Cup, featuring a Pokemon capable of monster damage output, and that is Shadow Magneton with Zap Cannon. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Tangy Platypus, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, this trainer is running Giratina Origin on the lead. Shadow Empoleon is the save switch with Hydro Cannon and Frustration because they have not yet got a chance to TM it away. And as the closer, the nuke machine itself, Shadow Magneton. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. Let's take a look at Shadow Magneton in the Great League Fantasy Cup. Hopping into the first match, picking up a pretty decent lead, Giratina Origin versus Empoleon. Giratina does win the Zero Shield here. Drill Peck will not be enough to KO. Giratina is going to farm up to the Shadow Ball and bait with the Ominous Wind. The Ominous Wind bait is successful, grabbing the shield, the save switch to the Empoleon, opponent choosing to stay in. They're going to fire off a Hydro Cannon, which will be shielded up by the Shadow Empoleon. Shadow Empoleon can look to overfarm quite significantly. Opponent is going to switch out and send in Azumarill. Here's where having Drill Peck would be nice, but Shadow Hydro will still add up onto the Azumarill. Azumarill farming up a tremendous amount of energy, but the Empoleon able to make it to the back-to-back Hydros. Hydro Cannon number 1 is going to connect, going for Hydro Cannon number 2, and that's a charge attack priority tie. That's huge for the Empoleon, grabbing the final shield. Oh no, it is officially Shadow Magneton time. Hydro Pump, not quite going to pick up the KO. In comes the Magneton, getting the full farm down, and those bubbles did so much damage. In the back is Giratina, Magneton farming up, going for the Magnet Bomb, but it's caught onto Empoleon. Even though it's double resisted, it will still KO. In comes the Giratina. Giratina gonna try and fish for the boost with the Ominous Wind. Magnet Bomb will not KO the Giratina. I think it's time. Shadow Magneton going for the Zap Cannon. This is a resisted move onto the Giratina, but it does not matter. KOing the Giratina and taking the win. We've got mirror leads in the next match. Giratina versus Giratina. Honestly, considering there's Magneton in the back, this is a pretty nice spot to be in. And Tangy's Giratina wins charge attack priority. That is incredibly nice for him. We are going to see the shield on the Ominous Wind. He's just going to let this go. And if it's the Ominous Wind, probably just aggressively switch into the Empoleon. And there it is. In comes the Empoleon. Empoleon is going to look to potentially commit a shield and farm up a ton of energy here. It is the Ominous Wind from the Giratina. Opponent is going to switch out into Azumarill once again. Another situation where having that double move on the Empoleon would be nice. This trainer did mention in the notes that they did actually hit Legend using this Empoleon that is running Frustration. As even though Hydro Cannon will do slightly less than Drill Peck in situations like these, it's an incredibly powerful move, so it still has some very nice damage output. The Play Rough is going to connect. Empoleon looking to farm up a lot of energy. The switch to the Giratina, trying to get the farm down, but can't quite get there. Azumarill forced to throw its energy. Ice Beam picks up the KO, but this just sets up Magneton to get a Volt Switch energy head start. Gonna wait the timer, send in the Magneton, get the Volt Switch down, and Magneton's energy is very scary. In comes the Giratina. Magneton just gonna look for a shield and a full farm down. There's so much energy loaded on this Empoleon. What's in the back? Oh, it's all over. It's a Skarmory in the back. This Shadow Zap Cannon probably KOs 2 Skarmories by itself. Opponent no longer wants to play anymore, and they will resign the match. Nightmare lead in the next match, Giratina versus Wigglytuff. 1 Shadow Claw and a save switch to Empoleon. Empoleon is going to be met with a Force Palm Lucario. Lucario does not win the zeros here. Will have to concede a shield to the Hydro Cannon. Lucario does farm down and exit with a decent amount of energy. This is kind of awkward for the Giratina, because Giratina kind of has to shield a Shadow Ball here, and you really don't want to shield the Giratina considering that it's going to be aligned onto a Wigglytuff later on. Giratina is going to overfarm as much as possible, going for the Ominous Wind to avoid having to use a second shield. Unfortunately, in comes the Wigglytuff. Giratina forced to go for the Ominous Wind just to burn the switch clock, and then it's all up to Magneton. In comes Magneton. Those charms do not look resisted. Magneton is so frail. Magneton forced to shield the Icy Wind. It's now going to be debuffed. In the back, it's Azumarill. Oh my goodness. They may think they live the discharge. This is resisted damage. Zap Cannon 1-hit KOs. That was debuffed. There is absolutely no way. That was a debuffed Zap Cannon that's still one shot at a Azumarill. Opponent will commit the shield. Unfortunately, Wigglytuff may be able to take this game, and they will. Oh my, Magneton putting in so much work, but the Wigglytuff gets the last laugh, charming down and taking the win. Very familiar lead in the next match as we have the Mirror of Giratina's opponent with the massive flex, the Giratina that's shiny and also below 1500 CP. They just go straight Ominous Wind. Tangy's gonna no shield, bait a potential Shadow Ball, and then look to send in Empoleon. The Ominous Wind does get shielded. In comes the Empoleon. Empoleon going to be able to shield once and try and go for the full farm down here. So Empoleon will commit the shield. It's the Ominous Wind from the opponent. Empoleon trying to farm down here. Can't get the farm down. Force the Hydro Cannon on the CMP tie. Hydro Cannon to the Giratina, gets shielded. It KOs through the shield because even a shielded move does 1 HP of damage. Opponent was not aware, and they will resign the match. The tough lead returns in the next match, Giratina versus Wigglytuff. In comes Empoleon, met again with Lucario. This might be the exact same team that was so problematic 2 games ago. But this time, Tangy is out for revenge, going to try and flip this game that unfortunately last time was a loss, potentially into a win this time around. Lucario farmed up quite a bit of energy, the shield from the Giratina, and it will be the Shadow Ball. Giratina, we've seen this, can't quite farm down here. Going to be forced to go for the Ominous Wind to pick up the KO. Only going to hit a couple bubbles. This will still be enough to knock out, but the switch clock is almost up. Going to be able to switch into the Magneton in the back. It's a different Pokemon. It's still a water type, but it's Empoleon, and Empoleon's just getting fully Volt Switch farm down. These Volt Switches are shredding through the Empoleon. Goodbye, Empoleon. Magneton has the back-to-back Magnet Bombs loaded, and this is game over for the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is gonna get one hit KO'd, and Tangy gets his revenge. Hopping into the next match, Giratina versus Haxorus. Breaking Swipe does not one-shot here, but it does a ton of damage. Haxorus is a deadly Pokemon to go up against. Haxorus tries to CMP type Breaking Swipe to the Shadow Ball. Tangy is going to no shield. That Breaking Swipe connects, and look at the damage. My goodness. Giratina over-farming to the max and unleashing the Ominous Wind. The Ominous Wind does get the shield. Opponent going to fire off another Breaking Swipe. Giratina wants to get rid of the counter user, considering there are the 2 steel types in the back. Opponent safe switches into their own Empoleon, going to be met with the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball does a lot of damage, and now he's actually going to bring in the mirror, choosing not to reveal that Shadow Magneton. Shadow Magneton, extremely frail. The Hydro Cannon will connect. Empoleon going to look to overfarm as much as it can, and hopefully Empoleon will be able to survive the counters and make a Hydro versus the Haxorus. The counters are going to do a ton of damage though here, so this will be very, very close. I believe Empoleon should be able to hang on here. In comes the Haxorus, those counters. Oh, can't quite get the farm down. In comes the Magneton, but the final Pokemon is revealed to be Skarmory. Skarmory now going to be hit with the Magnet Bomb. This is resisted, but at this point, the Magneton looks to be in a prime position to win this game. Magneton is going to be hit with a double resisted move. It's the Brave Bird that still does so much damage. Haxorus throws a move. I think they may have been able to tie if they didn't throw the move, but they throw the move, it gets shielded, and the game will end in a loss for the opponent. Picking up a decent lead in the next match, Giratina versus Flygon. Flygon, despite the fact that it can hit for super effective damage with Dragon Claw, this is typically going to favor the Giratina. The Dragon Claw will connect, that does a lot of damage, but the opponent doesn't really have any pressure to farm down. Giratina will go for the bait. Flygon is very glassy, so they love to shield, so that bait ends up making quite a bit of sense. Nice overfarm by the opponent, really trying to put the pressure onto the Giratina. Giratina will commit the shield and just go for the Ominous Wind. Ominous Wind, I don't think will quite KO here, but it will get the opponent quite low. We see the double shield from the opponent, and they're just going to be able to double up on Dragon Claw, so Tangy knows that he cannot shield here. If he shields, he gets KO'd anyway. He's better off saving the shield for the Empoleon as it tries to farm down. In comes the Empoleon. Empoleon commits the shield, as it is going to be the Scorching Sands from the Flygon, and a switch out into Registeel. Registeel, unfortunately, is going to be able to make a Focus Blast before the double Hydros are reached, so we are going to see the Hydro Cannon connect, But Empoleon is now going to get KO'd here. This will be the Focus Blast from the Registeel, and now it's all up to Magneton. Magneton has to try and clutch this game, forced to go for the Magnet Bomb. Any further farm, and the Registeel would have been able to make the Focus Blast. This has to KO, and it does. The issue is, there's still that very low health Flygon. Can Flygon actually be triple resisted, Volt Switched, farm down? In comes Dedenne. Dedenne, an attempted catch. They don't get the catch. And now it's a CMP tie. Magnet Bomb is neutral. Dedenne is frail. Will it KO? It does not KO. And it actually looks like it wasn't a CMP tie, so the opponent just got denied there. They're going for the play rough. Play rough. Oh no, Magneton. Oh, it survives. It survives and actually forces a tie. I thought that was over, but the Magneton refused to get KO'd until it KO'd Dedenne as well. Giratina versus Azumarill in the next match. As long as 2 shields are up, this is dominant for Tina because Azu can't land a move. We see an attempted catch onto Empoleon. The catch attempt unsuccessful, and Empoleon answered with a Ferrothorn. Another situation where Drill Peck would be quite nice, but that's kind of the tough thing about having the frustration events as infrequently as we do, as you can get a really good Shadow, and it feels like you can't really use it for a while. In this case, Tangy said, I'm using it anyway, and he's still been able to get quite a lot of wins, and actually hit Legend with it as well. We're going to see the Giratina brought back in here. They revealed Thunder, so they're completely walled by the Tina, so now Tina can look to get quite a bit of farm. Tina is going to build up to the back-to-back Ominous Winds and win charge attack priority. Ominous Wind will pick up the KO. Azumarill does have a move. They go for good timing, and that's going to cost them a shield as the Shadow Ball is reached. The Shadow Ball is going to be shielded. Azumarill now firing off the energy, and he is leaving it all up to 2-shield Shadow Magneton. Magneton hoping that it can sweep in the back, and their ABA Water. Oh, the opponent in absolute shambles. Magneton firing off this Magnet Bomb. That's shielded by the Empoleon. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a Zap Cannon in our future here. The Hydro Cannon shielded. Magneton gets that full farm down. Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't. Oh, they quit before they get Zap Cannoned. Absolute heartbreak here. You hate to see it. Decent lead in the next match, Giratina versus Skarmory. Giratina wins the 2s. Skarmory is going to win the 0s and the 1s. Giratina is able to outpace here. Tangy does have 2 much better answers in the back, so I like forcing the shield and then switching. Opponent gonna bring in Ferrothorn again. Opponent, if they ever see a Turtonator lead, would be an absolute shambles. Ferrothorn only builds up to a Power Whip. While that does a lot to a Shadow Empoleon, it doesn't KO. Empoleon's gonna get 2 Hydros here, and 2 Shadow Hydros do a lot of damage. Honestly, could potentially consider a small undercharge, just to try and get a little bit more energy on the Giratina, but this ends up working out as well. Unfortunately, the Giratina is only going to get like 1 Shadow Claw of energy, but still in a pretty decent spot. All in all things considered, not a bad spot to be in. You just have to hope that Magneton is going to be able to do well versus whatever they have in the back. But if they're this week the Turtonator, it could be something like a Azumarill in the back, and that would be really, really good for the Magneton. Magneton going to be shielding everything here. It is going to be the Brave Bird in the back. It's Registeel. They're running Triple Steel. Oh no. Oh no, they're going to think that they can live a discharge. Oh, they commit the shield on the Zap Cannon. The attack drop does come through, but even an attack drop will not save the Magneton. Magneton has to make it to the Zap Cannon. I think it's getting outpaced here, and it does get outpaced by 1 singular turn. Disaster strikes. Magneton almost able to take the win, but the opponent, respecting the Zap Cannon, gave them the victory. Hopping into the final match, a lead that Giratina has seen before versus Empoleon. And Tangy all too happy to let this through, because he knows that he can win the 0 shield here. The Empoleon is now on a range where Shadow Ball would come very close to knocking out, does a bit over 60%. Will go for the Ominous Wind bait. Oh, the opponent actually calls it, but we see a switch and a catch, hopefully of a Drill Peck onto the Empoleon, making the opponent use energy in an inefficient manner. In comes Flygon, and boy is it good to bait this out. Flygon just going to go for the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw does a lot to a Shadow Empoleon, but what it will not do is KO. Empoleon really has to hope that the Flygon lets this through. Flygon will commit the shield, and this is a problem. Flygon gets so much energy. The Giratina very, very low on HP here. Giratina gonna fire off the Ominous Wind. The opponent didn't throw their move. They didn't throw the move on the Flygon. They're just going to let that through. Now they end up firing the move. The opponent forgot that Giratina had a move that cost them a bunch of HP, and now Magneton is in prime position to absolutely destroy that Skarmory in the back. Magneton just going to go straight for the Magnet Bomb. Magnet Bomb is no shielded, but Magneton can go for the one shield farm down, exit with energy, and this energy threatens everything. Good Brave Bird by the opponent to limit farm, so Magneton exits with slightly less energy. The Flygon gets Volt Switch down. Opponent does not want to play anymore, and they will concede the match. All in all, these are some incredibly fun battles, so big thank you to Tangy for sending them in. Man, Shadow Magneton gotta be one of the most frail Pokemon in this cup. I was running quite a lot of Haxorus. And don't get me wrong, Haxorus is very frail, but at the very least, Haxorus isn't a Shadow. I think Magneton, factoring in the Shadow as well, is probably even glassier than Haxorus. Seeing a Steel-type get charmed down did hurt my soul just a little bit, but man, those Zap Cannons were absolutely glorious. And it goes to show that if Tangy can hit Legend with a single move, Hydro Cannon, Frustration, and Empoleon, then others can as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.